But yeah, with the whole your old job.
Oh, Dutch way?
Yeah, with the whole
Oh, the
hitting the
rage.
freezer. Like, where's all the anger come from? Do you think? Because obviously it
Ooh.
happen. Whatever people are doing in front of you starts it. Like what is that kind of inner, like what makes it so
Ooh.
intense?
Okay. Um, I'm not sure. I think I talked about like the whole stages of my anger last
Yeah,
podcast. So if you want to refer back to that, you could watch those. But usually where the anger would come from, it's usually it could. I feel like it wouldn't. Sometimes it could be just out of actions, and then anger becomes anger. Sometimes it could be sadness into anger, or maybe
yeah,
frustration into anger. Um, though most times it's usually because either I don't think I get too mad at myself anymore. Maybe I could be like, I could have done better,
hmm
yada yada. But I think most times is because I could see someone else doing something that I know they could be doing better. I know they could do it, but at that present moment, they might just be acting stupid, and they could do some sort of thing to tick me off, and then I start to have that little bit, and it doesn't happen too much anymore because I think it's just a different environment. But at
hmm
Dutch Way, if I was to have one thing tick me off, and I start and it ticks me off hard enough, where it's like that, like you can think of it almost like a flame. If you were to try to wick a candle, um, or better yet, a lighter. So if you
hmm
were to press the buttons to turn on the lighter, it may not turn on. That's maybe like the short tick off. It doesn't really hit me that
yeah,
hard,
yeah,
but once you kind of get that tick off to be hard enough where it hits you in a certain way, then it starts to kind of the fire's there, but it's not out of proportion.
yeah.
Um, once usually at and it was most times at Dutch Way. Um, I've always called it the Murphy's Law days because if you were to look into that, Murphy's Law would be anything that could happen, anything bad that could happen will and could happen. So I'd usually call like my bad days like those the Murphy's Law days,
hmm
because I'd have that one thing to tick me off, and then there'd be constantly a barrage of more and more things. Like, especially, I use that one day at Dutch Way. So maybe, I mean, there could be some days I could walk in and I could already be angry. But say if I was to walk in, I'd be happy. I
Yeah,
think that's a better example. I could walk in happy. Maybe the first thing that could maybe tick me off is there's a bunch of stuff on the to-do list. I'm already kind of like, ugh,
yeah.
now I have a lot on my plate. Um, Another thing that could be is um, what day it could be. If it was a Friday, oh. If it was a Wednesday, if it was a Monday, it could be an or a really good day.
Right.
But every single Friday, it would always be like a aggravating day because that's when we get hit the most, and it gets annoying because back then one of my coworkers would go and eat their lunch right as the like dinner rush starts, and so
hmm
I'm doing all this on top of the prep work by myself.
Right.
And I'm pretty good at multitasking, but once I have like a couple orders on that gets to like 3 to maybe 5 items long, and that starts to get out of hand, and then that's what fuels my anger more and more.
Right.
And then um it's usually the anger would just come from the barrage of bad things going and going and going and going and going, and I'm like, oh my god, give me a break. um though it's usually most times from that. Yeah, it stems from just the Murphy's Laws days, and I
hmm
haven't gotten that too much anymore.
That's good. Yeah, that is a hard job. That's like the fast pace too. I never liked fast paced jobs.
I
Um,
never. I swear, thinking about Dutch Way sometimes gives me like low level PTSD. I'm like, I
yeah,
feel like I'm joking at the same time, but at the same, but also it sometimes does give me like a little bit of like a stressful flashback once in a while because I'm like, it
yeah,
absolutely sucked. Like it doesn't sound like it does because you're flipping baddies, you're making all this junk. I'm like, it shouldn't be that stressful, but on top of everything else I had, that's just it. Usually, um, is probably more better yet, more or less. I think the anger would stem from just bottling things up. I've always
mm,
kind of lived that way.
yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. Um, we can get deeper into that if we want to.
We can. We still have like
Yeah,
some
yeah.
time left. Yeah.
So, with the bottling up idea, I've to kind of give an originality to it. I really don't want to like put the blame on my parents, but that's kind of where it came from.
Well, I mean, it's definitely part of it. You know.
Yeah. So with my dad, that's where it came from most. And if I was to ever protest or speak a word about something I wouldn't like, he'd always give this like snarky response, or once in a while I'd get spanked or whatever when I was little.
Hmm.
And so I've always and back then I was usually that like yes man. I'd always try to help people, and like back then I liked doing that because I enjoyed helping people and they'd always give like a positive response or whatever. But it turned almost into an unhealthy obsession, and
Mm.
I never really focused on myself, and that
Right.
I'd
That's a
always
common
help
thing
other
with.
people.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't, and which kind of makes it difficult now for like thinking about my future because I never really put too much thought into it
Mm.
because I never put myself first.
Right.
But I'd always bottled it up because, and also with my mom, it stems a lot there too because if I was to ever speak negatively of something, she'd always turn it into an argument, and it never come out of me actually getting the help I need. It'd always be like she'd get defensive and whatnot.
Right.
So I'd I'm like even nowadays that's usually how it is. So I feel like we can never really hold a conversation without arguing.
Oh yeah.
Once in a while we can have a conversation, but it's usually when I'm not leading it. It's just whenever I put in a comment or whatever.
Mm.
And so um I would just bottle it up, and that's usually like once in a while. That's how I go into Dutch Way, and that's probably where the 2024 like April 2024 blow up happened because I was bottling something up, and it was like expectations, work, family, relationships, expectations, so many things, uncountable things that
Hmm.
a 16, 15-year old should not even be experiencing at that age was experiencing. And it turned into this as it was, just this absolute release. It felt good, but it felt bad at the same time. And usually whenever I would feel bad, nowadays I that's when I'd start praying, and it's the hotline's always on. God's always ready to call, so I go to Him once in a while. Sometimes I do bottle it, but eventually I do bring it to Him at some point. Um, and that's kind of where I felt like the 2024 April blow up at Dutch Way was like the end of the line for like anger outbursts. There might be times where I can get close, but I never actually reach that point, and
Mm. Mm.
it's I try not to bottle it up as much. I still sometimes do whenever I'm around people, but I've always felt bad voicing my own opinion, so like from a young age, and it's usually difficult to say what I want, what I need. Um, I mean, I can almost kind of use an example. Back in pre-K, I had speech therapy, but maybe not for the fact that I wouldn't voice my own opinions, just because I probably just wouldn't talk at all. Which eventually I started talking more.
You had speech therapy for just being quiet?
Yeah, because
It's like, what's the actual like, what are they trying to fix? You know?
They're trying to fix the muteness. Usually people are supposed to start talking at like
you're like what age?
I was probably, well, I mean, I would still talk, but I wouldn't talk as much, and it was more or less, yeah, to voice my own opinions and what I need and what I want.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that was back in like pre-K. I remember those appointments. Some woman would come in during my like lunch, pull me back into this like back corner and be like do our speech therapy for like maybe 15 minutes, half an hour. Mm-hmm. Then I go back to whatever we were doing. And I mean, I can't really put too much into that because I don't quite remember, but I mean, seeing where I am now, I don't think that really helped or worked.
Yeah, I also had that class. It was when I was in online school, and I don't think it really did much. Oh. Yeah, I enjoyed it, but nowadays I don't think it changed anything.
Yeah. And so I feel like the people that really help me to open up is my friends, my chef, because I opened up to him, and God. And that's really why I go to God most times. Because usually, I mean, yeah, my friends can lend an ear, but sometimes they may be busy, and that's fair. You know, everyone's busy once in a while. But being able to talk to someone anytime, because usually I wouldn't be able to, it really did help, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I don't bottle it up as much.
That's good. It's really good.
I ain't been this high Perkins in a long time. I ain't been this high Perkins in a long time. I took 2 30s and a half of a third one. I feel like I can see everything with my third eye. Feel like I'm floating, see the world from a bird's eye view. These drugs remind me of a girl I knew. A little sweet, a little sour, and it vibes with the mood. Ain't no competition, baby, but I'm higher than you. Pray to God I never come down, down, down.